His skin is white just like a ghost, thick Irish roots and his blonde hair. And he sounds like a Chicago superfan, a music nerd with a collection of CDs from here to there. Yes, Andy Dare is in Chicago, interviewing and barbecuing. It's the Andy Dare Show. It's the Andy Dare Show.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for checking out the Andy Dare Show. This is my 66th episode, and I'm joined by Dag Juhlin, who you can hear him on Monday through Friday on the Steve Dahl Show podcast. That's at dahl.com. And yeah, he's really funny on that. He brings a lot of his musical chops, spending years in bands across Chicagoland, such as Pondering, The Slugs, and his newest group, a cover band called Expo 76. And it's a great interview. Real funny guy. He's got a real cool guitar style. Do check it out. But before I get into the meat of it, I'd love to bring out my two awesome sponsors. First up, as we've been saying on the show for a while now, I'm a record freak and basically grew up in a record store, Remember When Records, and it was late last year. The owner retired, and he sold out all the inventory to a secondhand mall that was next door. And, so after they closed up Remember When Records, Secondhand Mall moved in, and they got to inherit a lot of that big vinyl collection and a lot of the CDs and stuff. So it definitely has a vibe of Remember When Records, and I would recommend it highly. If you're in the Westmont area, it's at 309 West Ogden Avenue. Give them a call. They buy, sell, trade. 630-810-88 or 9980. And check them out on the web at Secondhand Mall, a.k.a. 2ndhandmall.com. And, as I said, they have a huge musical selection. They have music instruments now, a lot of vintage stuff. Do check it out if you're a musician. And even if you're a carpenter, they have power tools for from the small job to quite big jobs. They have a lot of power tools, even computer equipment. It's just basically a very cool store, in an interesting vibe when you walk in the doors there. So, that is Secondhand Mall in gorgeous Westmont, Illinois. And by Uncle Bub's award-winning barbecue. Family owned and operated for 15 years. Since 1997, Mark Lincoln Company have slowly built their reputation based on the real deal barbecue. And not only being a family-friendly restaurant, they're also a great catering company as well. And they do weddings, they do pig roasts, luau's, grills. They even do corporate lunches, all sorts of stuff. They will come at the event. They will come on site, and they can bring a smoker. They can bring grills, a real helpful staff. Make sure that your party goes out without a hitch. And, it's located in Westmont, Illinois as well. I'm trying to keep my sponsors local. Give them a call, 630-493-9000, and book your catering event today. For menus and other info, UncleBubs.com. And if you're in the Westmont area or the western suburbs of Chicago, check them out. It's 132 South Cass Avenue, Westmont, Illinois. All right. One more. We are now an Amazon affiliate, so all you have to do is just go to theandydareshow.com, click on the Amazon banner, and order just like you normally would at Amazon.com. One of the internet's greatest success stories, Amazon.com has pretty much everything that's ever been sold in some way on there. So do check it out. If you click through our website, it's just a way of saying that we support your creative endeavor and we support the awesome interviews that you bring to us. It is a free show, but I would love you to support our sponsors. So just click through the Amazon banner at the Andy Dare Show, and we get to wet our beaks just a little bit more. All right, that does it with sponsors. Thank you for standing by. And we got a great episode today with Dag Juhlin from Pondering, from the Slugs, from the Steve Dahl Show. It's a great one. Before we get into that, just want to say what's been up the last couple weeks. As I said, I got to meet Adam Carolla last week. That was pretty cool. Actually, it was my second time meeting him, but he was just such a nice guy. Got to take a picture, and he had a great show. He's really on fire. Man, I saw him in Joliet. It was a gorgeous theater that I've never heard of, a Rialto Square theater, and it was pretty interesting. Just a gorgeous place, and he did an on fire set. I couldn't believe it. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with that, and I got to see a legend with Neil Young the night before. So, and he just totally rocked me. Being 66 years old and just completely, finding new ways to rock thousands of people in a room is amazing. So yeah, I had quite an eventful week. Just want to tell you, thank you for listening to the show. It's been 66 awesome episodes. I want to thank the guests, the sponsors, and you, the listener. And without further ado, my episode 66, Pod Dog Pondering, special guest, Dag Juhlin. Hey, Dag, you're on the Andy Dare Show. How goes it?
Goes great. How you doing, Andy?
Yeah, pretty good. Having a little rainy day here in Chicago, but yeah, having fun. How's things over at the Steve Dahl Show doing for you?
Things are going very well. It's very fun, and we're doing new stuff to get certain parts of the network sorted out, and I think we're in a great spot and moving forward.
Cool. So you are like a co-host with Brendan Greeley as well. That's been what, like 8 months now, or
Something like that. I came on towards the end of April.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, I love the network. I'm a Chutter subscriber myself, and I even got to do some work with Kevin Matthews doing a little Music Minute up on his show. It was a blast. We've done, I guess, 10 segments together now. So.
Mm-hmm. And you've got your own podcast as well.
Yeah, I'm doing my own thing. I'm on, this will be 66th episode. I've been doing this a year and a half, do it just once a week, kind of just for fun. Getting some local sponsors here and there, But, yeah, I've always enjoyed the art of podcasting. Never been a big radio guy. I mean, I turn on radio now, and it's either commercials, it's either dubstep music, or Chris Brown, and I don't need any of that, right?
Yeah, it's pretty grim out there. Yeah,
I mean, it seems like it's like almost a punk rock way of doing it for Steve. I mean, I've talked about Adam Carolla doing this himself. They get canned from radio and they just say, "Oh, I'll just do it in my basement," and have complete freedom over the whole thing. Have complete control over it too. Yeah,
and it's just as much control for the listener too, to decide when and where to listen, and you can stop and start and listen to it later, or catch up on stuff you might have missed, and it's great. It's a good model, it seems.
Pretty much on demand whenever you want it. That's why I love it. You can listen late at night. You never really have to miss anything if you don't want to miss stuff. But yeah, the Dahl Network, they've got James Van Osdol, a Q101 legend himself, doing a music show once a week. Then you got Matt and Brendan. Matt is Steve Dahl's son. They're doing a show a week too. And I calculated it all out. All the different episodes, you're getting 40 episodes a month, and it only costs $10 a month, so that's really $0.25 an episode. It sounds like a really good deal to me for anybody who's complaining about paying for a podcast.
Right, and you're getting the archive shows too, which when I'm going to cough here, so you can take this out if you want. But when I signed up for it, I just felt like I think the first thing I might have heard was one of the archive episodes, and I felt like immediately I thought, of course, what a great investment. This is perfect. And then you think about what you might just piss away $10 on the stupidest thing, the most spontaneous thing, and with that same money, you know what I mean, you're getting a whole month's worth of entertainment. So I think it's a great deal.
Yeah, I love the archive shows, too. I kind of grew up in the 80s with Steve Dahl's voice just in the back of the room always, almost like a second father, kind of. So when I go back and hear those episodes, it's just like I flash back right to the 80s. And he was really cutting edge. He still is cutting edge. But, I mean, he was, again, I bring up the term punk rock, and he probably doesn't even realize he's punk rock. But I mean, some of the stuff that he was broaching in the late 80s, you know, with, I guess the last archive episode I heard about was with strip clubs, and he was saying that it's just a normal thing for guys. They have to get it out of their system, kind of, and then he gets a call, and it's Janet, his wife, and she's screaming at him. They're kind of having a nice little argument, and then and the next caller is yelling at Steve and calling him kind of like a pig, and then he goes, you know, that was my wife, right? She's married to me. So it was kind of funny that, you know, they can have an argument and be civil about it and still have love at the end of the day for each other.
Yeah, I mean, that was really fascinating and compelling radio when that was going on live on the air. It was you know, it would be one of those things where you'd hate to you know, you'd sit in the driveway and listen to it, or you'd hit, you know, in my case, I started listening to Steve, I think, almost immediately when he landed in Chicago. I was in high school, and you know, it's one of those things where you'd talk to your friends the next day, you'd be like, or the morning of, or something. You'd be like, can you believe what you heard? I can't believe it. You know, like what that guy said and everything. And then I found myself after high school, kind of kicking around a little bit, but working some jobs where I, you know, driving a delivery truck or something like that. And my God, Steve and Gary were just a godsend to have on the radio. And I think I mentioned this to Steve the other day on the show, but if I'd be flipping around, if there was a radio that had been set to a different station and I was flipping around, I always knew that I had arrived on Steve's show by the dead air. Like when you get onto the dead air,
that's him,
and then you'd hear him, and he, you know, such a integral part of the show. Just him collecting his thoughts, or you know, it's a strange sensation for me quite often to realize that I'm, you know, sitting there across the room from a guy that I've been listening to for over 30 years, since he got in Chicago and was, you know, asked by him to join his show. And to me, it's still from time to time, if I think about it, it kind of blows me away and sets me back on my heels a little bit. But it's going really well, and I'm having a lot of fun. And Brendan is great, and Eric, everybody's doing a great job over there. And it's, you know, so I'm glad to be a part of it. I'm glad to contribute in whatever way I can.
Cool. So did you stay in touch with him like throughout the years as a fan, or how did it become, hey, come do my show and be a permanent fixture on it?
Yeah, we hadn't known each other at all, really, up until within the last year, when I had been listening. You know, as a subscriber, I'd been listening, and I had just thought, I kind of took it upon myself to send him some bits of music, because he had I heard him do his introduction to his archive show, and he would do a thing where he'd sort of make it sound like there's like a delay on his voice. He would go descent into the archive.
He was just doing it,
you know?
Yeah.
and it just made me think of, there was an old show in Chicago called Creature Features, which was a midnight movie on Channel 9 where they would play the Henry Mancini kind of theme, which has got like a spooky sounding monster theme movie sound to it. And I just thought, well, Descent into the Archives, it's a fun opportunity to do a little bit of that Henry Mancini type of spy monster movie music. And I just basically sent it to him unsolicited.
Cool.
And then I heard him messing around. He wanted to do a song about Floridians, and then I thought, well, the thing kind of wrote itself in a couple of minutes, and I fleshed it out, and I sent it to him, and that struck up a relationship, and I in a little bit of correspondence or whatever, and it ended up with us, with my wife and I were having a talk one day because we were both going through some underemployment, and we were just like, all right, well, who's going to which one of the two of us is going to draw the short straw and get the application for the jewel store and work at the jewel store?
Yeah.
And as soon as as soon as she left the room, I looked at my phone and my email, and there was an email from Steve that said, "Do you have a day job? Because I'd like to make you part of the show, a larger part of the show. And that afternoon, I went over and we talked for a couple of hours, and we got along right away. And we had met, I think, a couple of times at one of his Monday night football events, which was held right across the street from where I was working before, which was for MeTV, the classic rerun station here in Chicago. But we had met, and I think we had become Facebook friends or something. And that's why I dropped out some music just to let him know that I was a bona fide musician. I wasn't just some guy from the internet,
No. Yeah.
and so we, like I say, he asked me over, and we spent a couple hours talking, and I think he liked the musical stuff that I had submitted, and I think he thought I was funny in person, and within a couple of hours, I was working for him, and he had already had some changes, to his then staff, in mind. And it was awkward for me because I had, known his former producer Pete. So it was weird, and so it's kind of a strange thing, and there's some backlash amongst the fans. But I think for the most part, people like my presence on the show and what I brought, and I've brought it, I guess, a musical element and certain elements of production. I'm a guy who's been listening to Steve for 30 plus years, and so if you would have asked me to name my comedy inspiration, it would be Monty Python, and it would be SCTV and Bob and Ray, and it would be Steve Dahl, and that's I would have said that regardless of me working with him or not. So it's he came in, and my friends and my brother, and we were the right age, the right the radio needed his type of personality, and what he did to kind of there's a certain element of jive with your standard jock, your standard DJ, and he blew through all that, whether it's his disagreements with Janet on the phone, or him coming into work, hungover, or him,
eating food on the air just to be annoying. Right?
Exactly. So there's enough, but he also, and I've learned this even more working with him, is that he has such, he's a great broadcaster. He's not just a free range punk. You know what I mean? Like who came in and decided to, take a big dump all over the convention of radio that was going on. He's a very astute.
He's a professional. Yeah.
Person. He's a very professional guy. Even now, just observing the way he knows when it's time to move on to a subject, or how to circle back on a subject that I had even forgotten we were on in the first place. And it's so throughout this whole thing, and he has such a real reverence for radio, because it really was a thing that I think obviously it made such a big impact on his personal life, and music and radio, those are real escapes for people, and they're real salvation for people.
Sure.
And that's really apparent, and I think that's why the state of radio has caused him such personal pain, and it's not just necessarily about a lot of contract or whatever. I think it's really about the state of this thing that he and many other people loved and dearly for many, many years, and to see it now kind of in this state of just massive corporate interest is kind of distressing.
Yeah.
So,
like my mom would always say, like it was in the 80s before reality TV, all the shows were all scripted, all polite and buttoned down. and his life was pretty much on like you could listen to his whole life go by, and that's what was kind of intriguing at the time when everything was scripted, everything was buttoned up, you know.
Right, exactly. And it just wasn't arbitrary shock behavior. It was, like, excuse me again. It was the the fights with Janet. It was the birth of his son. It was his on-air vasectomy. It was all that stuff. It was equal parts like just vulnerability and
getting sober and yeah.
Right. It's an amazing legacy, and I, personally, for many reasons, I'm glad that he's still out there, with the network and doing the shows, and he's still got a lot to say, and I'm just glad to be a part of it.
That's so cool. Yeah, like him and Gary and Kevin Matthews and even Johnny B, they were all rock stars back then. And it's so different now, with your Eric and Kathy or whoever's on the morning, whatever. It was a different era. And at my restaurant, somebody goes, "Hey, you're doing a thing for Kevin Matthews. Look what I found in my basement." And he gives me this old beaten up poster, and it's that old Bud Dry ad where they're all playing pool. It's totally cool, and I was like, man, I really appreciate it. If it wasn't all beaten up, I'd frame it, but it was just back when they were rock stars, kind of.
Oh, they'd sell out Poplar Creek, this huge outdoor music venue. I don't know how many it holds, 8,000 or 10,000, I'm sure, but and the Rosemont Horizon and all these, long gone venues, but although it's the Allstate Center now. But I mean, they could sell out these huge venues, which major rock bands were also selling out. It was incredible,
They'll play it after Aerosmith plays it, yeah.
Right, yeah. So they were the rock stars. Yeah, that was probably it was amazing, and there was a really strong lineup of hugely influential radio talent there on one powerhouse.
Sure. Yeah, like my show's like I'm a rock-oriented guy myself. Spent like 3 years working at a record store in Westmont, and I was going there my entire life, and they just closed their doors last year. So I just thought, let me do a show where I can talk to different rock stars, talk to comedians, talk to DJs, anybody about the world of music. And obviously, you're not just Steve Dahl's wingman. You were part of the Slugs, part of Poi Dog Pondering, and now Expo 76. What are your first earliest musical memories? Like, was it in high school for you?
I know that I had at various points as like a young grade schooler, kind of wanted, I think, maybe sort of half-heartedly expressed an interest in getting a guitar. So I think probably as early as maybe 4th grade or something in 3rd grade, I might have been given a plastic guitar, which I never really learned how to play, but when I was in junior high school, my brother and I were very close in age, and he had started taking bass guitar lessons. And we're like 11 months apart, and we both had birthdays in November. So we had gotten some birthday money, and he was going to go to the music store to buy a bass guitar. And he'd always been telling me, "Oh, you should play guitar. You should play guitar, and we could play together." And I for some reason, I just was like, "No, I think that's going to be too much like math." And I'm not really interested in that. So I would push him off, and I'd go out and shoot baskets, But
sure.
When he was going off, my mom was going to, take him to the music store, and I was going to go with him. We were about to leave, and I ran back to my dresser drawer where I had stashed my $25 that I had gotten for my birthday, and I just instinctively grabbed it. I don't know what was going on, but I felt something, and I thought maybe, I don't know. So I went and bought a cheap guitar, and I started. Somebody showed us how to tune it, and I picked it up really quickly, and I don't know why, but I played all the time, and I just loved it, and so in between, and I would see, I remember being a little younger, and guys in 6th grade were saying, "Yeah, we're going to form a band." It was not even it's like one guy played drums and one guy played trumpet, and not really a full rock band lineup. But I was just there's something about it. I wanted that. I was like, I want to be a part of that, even though I couldn't play anything, and that, you know. So I just was around the time of 6th and 7th grade. I was being drawn to it, and you know, the AM radio was really great and diverse back then, and there was all sorts of cool stuff, and the radio was always on, and you know, it was great, and I was buying Elton John records, and so I just was drawn to it for some reason I can't quite explain, but I was able to pick it up really quickly, and I never took any lessons, and I was just listening to records and figuring it out, and people that I knew who played, I'd watch them, and I'd know how something was supposed to sound, and I would just keep pounding away until it sounded like that. And by the time I was like, you know, a sophomore in high school or something, right before junior year, I think it was, I started playing in a band. A friend of mine who I watched play, and I learned a lot from watching him. He was in a band, and we lied to the guys in the band and said I was his cousin, and could I join the band? And so I don't know why that made a difference. But, so I joined this band, I think it was like in 1978. And I've never not been in a band since 1978. So I just, you know, I've done, Pondering has played, you know, some of the biggest places anywhere, you know,
Sure.
amphitheaters and Ravinia and you know, you know, every place in Chicago, and that's been great. And the Slugs played all the clubs, all the grimy clubs, and you know, toured in a crummy van, and you know, had drinking contests on stage, you know, whatever. Like we were, you know, it was wild, and it was.
Well, speaking about 78, that was like when punk was starting to break. Was that made it easier for just the average guy to kind of just pick up and get in a van and just play shows?
Well,
you didn't have to be Jimmy Page, you know?
Yeah, you know, in 78 I was still a high school sophomore or something, so I was still like, you know, playing Doobie Brothers songs and happy. Punk hadn't really, you know, gotten to me, but by the time it was, let's say, 1980, and I was a senior in high school, I was not necessarily drawn to punk because to me, it felt kind of exclusively British in a way, and I couldn't necessarily, as a kid growing up in Park Ridge, which was a comfortable place to grow up, I did not feel necessarily punk rock angst, but I did like the new wave idea of wearing a skinny tie and dancing with girls and playing gigs and having girls come and dance, and you know,
sure.
it was fun. It was fun. It wasn't necessarily like it was a clean break away from kind of stoner rock and
like without the angst, but still the stripped back like arrangements.
Right. It was immediate, and it was fun, and it was boys and girls together having a laugh. So, and I liked that. But then, what happened a few years later when the Slugs started, which was definitely a result of punk, but also almost a direct result of, I'd probably say, REM.
Sure.
Which was, there was a college radio ignited, and independent labels and independent magazines and fanzines grew and exploded, and so there was a real do-it-yourself thing that was going on, which was, you know, not exclusive to any one style of music, but it was like a frontier. It was great, and there was all this sort of stuff going on, and there was all these bands kind of turning each other on to clubs and people around the country or around the Midwest, and indie labels were sprouting just to, you know, release your own cassette tape or whatever. And we got hooked up with Pravda Records because they just, you know, it's a group called The Service, and they had some songs and they wanted to put out a record, and because of the spirit of the times, they decided to put out their own record and form their own label. And it was just as simple as saying, yes, we're a label. We're a label because we say we are, you know?
Yeah.
And that happened, and then that leads to people submitting tapes, and then they think, oh, let's form a label. Well, I mean, so the guy who formed Pravda Records, Ken Goodman, is now my bandmate in Expo 76. You know, so we've kept in touch all these years, and
That's
we've been friends
awesome.
all these years. And so it's, you know, it's like this alliance that was kind of formed in in our college years or whatever, and now it's turned into we're a cover band. XO76 is a cover band made of made of great players, and we've become. There were the other three guys in the band didn't really know each other, but I knew them all from different areas of my life, and I wanted to put together a band of people who could play well and have fun and have well chosen covers that, I don't want to be in a band that was going to play Brown Eyed Girl and just want to shoot yourself in the mouth afterwards, because it's like, here I am going through the motions, playing what quote unquote people want to hear. Our thing is like, we don't take requests, because we're playing such great stuff you have heard, stuff you haven't heard in a while, you forgot about, and stuff that you've never heard before, and you're just going to love. So it's just like, it's been a great experience for me, and it's been working out, and it's turned into a thing. I mean, we're all like, we're all pushing 50, and we're all bald old men, but we play like
You still got the love for it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and the thing is, you when you're around long enough, it takes you a long time to really play. I think what happens is people like, you spend the first decade or two faking it until you can feel it. You know what I mean? You spend a long time emulating people and getting, copying what they do, and then you do the math and you figure out, oh, that's why this sounds like that, and then you just start. You've amassed all this experience, and you start playing it, and you really begin to feel it. It takes a long time,
You start emulating yourself. Yeah. You
start emulating yourself, and you start emulating. You just start. I don't know. I feel like I've only just recently gotten good. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I've had a lot of different kind of, and there was a time in the sort of mid 2000s when I was doing like a solo acoustic thing almost primarily, and that was good in learning how to stand up in front of a crowd with no giant amplifier to hide behind, or whatever, any noise to hide behind it. So I mean, and that can be as humbling a thing as you could ever hope to do. Is to stand up and just fucking bomb.
Yeah.
I had that happen any number of times, but I guess it's how you recover from something like that. So I mean, I feel like I've had a pretty far-ranging, musical life and set of experiences. I've had,
How about your favorite venue to play in Chicagoland?
When Poor Dog was really, really humming in the mid and late 90s, we'd go over to the Vic Theater, and we'd have these incredible shows. And we had one run where we had 6 instantly sold out nights in a row.
Whoa.
and that's really, it's a great accomplishment, but it was just incredible when you're a couple nights into the thing and the band is just smoking hot, and the stage is just right for all the hundreds of members of the band and the production elements that we want to bring. And I mean, that was, and
finally got enough space. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And you get to know the crew of the place, and, so that's super easy to enjoy when everything's falling your way, so I mean, that was really great.
Hey man, I know you like grilling. I know you like getting those dark grill marks on your burgers, fish, chicken. And I know you don't want to just dry your meat out like you're cooking with a hairdryer. Why not get the Man Grate and click through the AndyDareShow.com's banner so we can keep the lights on here at Honeycomb Hideout Studios in gorgeous Westmont, Illinois. The Man Grate. Yeah, speaking of Poi Dog, how did you end up meeting up with Frank and the guys? Was that part of your work with Slugs? Did he see you with that, or was it just you'd been around long enough that he'd heard of you?
Yeah. Even at that point, that was around 92 that I first hooked up with them, and that was, even at that point, I put a decade into the local scene, and what happened was Max Crawford, who is also an XO76 bandmate, as it turns out, he was coming up to Port Dog would come and play shows at Lounge Acts. In addition to playing their shows at Metro and stuff or Cubby Bear, they became a real favorite of the people who owned Lounge Acts. And I was working there. I was like working the door.
That's Jeff Tweedy's wife, right? Or
yeah, Sue Miller. Yeah, and so they would come up and do shows, and I got to know Max. We got to be really good friends because, you know, we're the same age, and we had the same kind of sense of humor, and we, you know, when he'd come up for a visit, we'd hang out, and he would be at Lounge Acts, and we'd just goof around, and I think sort of when Frank decided to come up, because he was, you know, in between relationships, and he was looking for a change from Austin, Frank and Max wanted to do something, and they said, hey, let's get this guy Dag. He's a cool guy, and he plays guitar, and, you know, and they were doing these monthly shows at Lounge Acts and putting together kind of an ad hoc band for each month just to find some players that are comfortable with.
cool.
And I just kept getting asked back each month. You know, I kept waiting, like, you know, they'd say, oh, that drummer didn't work out. Who do you know that plays drums? Or the bass player's a drunk, we can't use him, or whatever. So they just started putting together this band, and much to my surprise, I kept getting asked back each time, and the Slugger at that time were having a kind of a period of discontent, and it was a relief for me to step into a situation where there was no tension. And I mean, my brother and I have sort of well documented as having our disagreements both off stage and on stage. So that was it was a thing where I was you know, didn't really break up, but I stepped into this other situation, which was, it was a little higher profile for sure, but it was a relief to not be at the front, to just be a guitar player, because I wanted to, you know, I felt like I always fancied myself a guitar player. I never wanted to be a singer, but it just wound up that way. I never wanted to do it. I was always felt like I was Pete Townsend in search of Roger Daltrey, and I never found him, you know.
Yeah.
So, or in search of Michael Stipe or whatever it was, you know. So I was like, I was just so relieved just to play guitar and to explore different things rather, you know, than kind of fast and loud. You know, it's like I always felt that I had more to offer, and I wanted to put myself to the test and see if I could, you know, walk it like I talk it. And it turned into a great thing. And you know, there was a period of a couple of years where the band switched lineups, and then I got back in. So it's been 20 years since I've been in Poi Dog, you know. So it's great, and you know, we've slowed down a great deal, but when we get together and do shows, it's amazing. I'm always surprised that we can get together without any rehearsal and still
pick it right up. Nice,
amazing moments. So yeah, it's great. So I've got a lot of great sources of musical satisfaction, and I'm really grateful for all that.
Yeah, a lot of different directions, a lot of different paths.
Mm-hmm.
Was Pomegranate the first album that you recorded with Poi Dog?
Yes. Yeah, that was the album that it's a great album, and it was like the band had a couple of records for Sony, and then Sony officially dropped them, and so we did this, you know, we kind of put it all together ourselves, and it was a real triumph of a band sort of starting from scratch, and that's a lot of Poi Dog fans' favorite Poi Dog record, and I mean, it's quite a nice album, and I'm glad to be a part of that.
That's totally awesome. Yeah, I've only got a couple more questions left for you. I don't want to keep you too long. But so what do you think's next for the Steve Dalton Network? You guys thinking about branching out with more shows, or is it just trying to streamline what you got? I mean, you got Dino Stamatopoulos too. You got a whole bunch of other good stuff too.
Yeah, I think we're what we're in the process of doing now is really refining our sort of the technical side of it. You know, I think we've got a really great creative roster in place, and that's really solid. You know, people, you know, 2 shows a day and 1 show on weekends. It's a lot of content. So we're trying to solidify the means of subscription management and content delivery, and you know, web presence and all that sort of stuff. You know, we're kind of observing how others do it and making up our own model as we go. And then I think once we really get that to a spot where that is up and running in a place where we like, then I think if there's other creative or content things that we feel need to be added, then I think we would probably look to that.
Cool.
Right. Yeah. So I think right now what's happening is we're focusing, doing major overhauls of certain technical sides of the network and
behind the scenes stuff. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think everybody's show is really going well. There's such a variety of things, and so if there's I don't think there's any new shows that are planned on being added at this point. But
how about like live shows? You're gonna be doing any more? Because I got to see you at the Park West. That was pretty awesome. But that was the only one, right?
Yeah. No, that was all those kind of things. Like we've done live. Recorded the show live at different places, and that was a gas for us. And so I think, like I said, once the mechanics of what we're doing, all that stuff, once that infrastructure is in place and moving along more self-sufficiently, then I think we get the fun, the idea of like, okay, where are we going to take this show next? Because I think everyone agreed that it was good to do. We did live broadcasts from. I guess you can't really say a live broadcast, but we recorded the show live at Elwood's restaurant, and we did the Monday Night Football thing. We love getting out of the studio. We know people like watching the show being recorded, and so I think what we would probably do is do that with a little bit more regularity. Take the show to different areas. And I think it's a great way to get the word out about the network. It's a great way for people who, invariably ask, "Oh, wow, I used to listen to Steve on the radio. What's he up to now?"
Yeah, what's he up to now is the worst question, right? You just
yeah, right. So that's but it's a reminder of us that there's still a job to do in that department and get the word out.
Oh, sure.
So, but we have a mobile setup that we can take out and record the show, and so I personally am looking forward to doing that, and I would like for that to be, a regular thing, whether it's a monthly thing or not. I don't know, but I could see us easily and happily moving into doing the show from different locations, and so I'm excited about that.
Awesome, I love hearing it. Yeah, so Dull.com, subscribe today. You get $10 for 1 month or $100 for a year. You get 2 months free that way. As I said, you're getting 40 episodes for $10. Quarter an episode, can't beat it. It's a Chicagoland staple. Yeah, I guess where can they find stuff about the music stuff in your career? Do you have like a Dag Juhlin page or?
Yeah, I've got. I haven't really added anything, but I've been a little slow to blog. But I'm. My problem is that when I start writing, it's like everything is connected. So it's hard for me. It's like either I say nothing or I just get prepared to say everything.
Say everything
so
and just deluge everybody.
Maybe that's what I'll do. It's just I almost shut up. So, but I mean, like, yeah, yeah, it's not really an exciting story. So I mean, there's information on me out there, but I'll make sure that I add more to my blog space on the Dull.com network. That's my personal promise to you, Andy.
Awesome, sounds good, Doug. I just appreciate you taking the time out for a local guy. And yeah, any last words? Here.
I'm glad we finally had a chance to talk, and I appreciate you inviting me on your show. And we'll see you in person one of these days.
Awesome. I'm definitely down to do it. Yeah, so on behalf of Dag Juhlin, this is Andy Dare signing off for the Andy Dare Show. Be sure to follow Andy on Twitter. That's at Andy Dare, ANDYDERER. And like our show on Facebook. That's Facebook.com/The Andy Dare Show. Videos at YouTube.com/Andrew Martin Dare. And it all leads back to the AndyDareShow.com. Support our show by supporting our sponsors. Uncle Bub's award-winning barbecue, Secondhand Mall, The Mandrate, and Amazon.com. Thank you so much for listening.
His skin is white just like a ghost, thick Irish roots and his blonde hair, and he sounds like a Chicago superfan. A music nerd with a collection of CDs from here to there. Yes, Andy Dare is in Chicago, interviewing and barbecuing. It's the Andy Dare Show. It's the Andy Dare Show.